Now joining me, our great friend, Senator Roger Wicker from Mississippi. Mr. Wicker, thank you for coming back on the show. I'm sure you heard all that.
Thank you, Larry. Appreciate it.
I'm sure you heard all that. And I will say to you, sir, I think our numbers are basically correct. They're certainly ballpark numbers. Putin's behavior is pretty much ballpark. It burns me up to watch us help him being Putin, and basically all the people around the world that hate us. It burns me up to watch this country help them when none of that is necessary. And we could be producing 15 million barrels a day, and oil price and gasoline price and home heating fuel and natural gas, and heck, you know the story as well as I do. All that stuff would be a lot lower, and I'm just going to guess there would be fewer wars. How's that, Senator Wicker? Fewer wars.
Well, there would be less in Vladimir Putin's pocket and in the treasury of the Russian Federation for sure. Yes, this is basically fifth grade arithmetic that you've reminded us of, and it's another one of the self-inflicted wounds done immediately upon taking office by President Biden. It was the war on oil. It was the signaling of the open border. I mean, who around the world could not have understood that our border was an open invitation after what the president did the first day in office and during his campaign, and then fueling the inflation fire with $1.9 trillion of tax and spend when we were already coming out of a recession because of COVID. Yes, the war on oil, which the president now says we're going to need for another 10 years at least, has not only hurt us in the pocketbooks here in the United States, but yes, it has enriched Putin and helped his war effort. Absolutely.
Yes, indeed. All right. I want to move on a little bit different point. So we had this balloon. You were on last week. We were talking about ballooning and flying saucers and whatnot. Now we have Vladimir Putin pulling out of the START nuclear treaty. We have China, as always, insulting the United States and playing footsie with Russia more and more. Whether they're going to sell them lethal weapons or not, we don't know. Here's what I don't get, sir. Whether it's ballooning or flying saucers or Russia or China or their behaviors, why hasn't the United States taken any countermeasures? Why hasn't this country stiffened its back? And let me just add, I don't mean to presuppose an answer here, but I want to just speculate with you a moment. My former boss, Donald Trump, I believe, actually I just bumped into him at dinner the other night last weekend, he would have slapped on at least $100 billion worth of tariffs on China. He surely would have slashed or added export controls, thrown TikTok out of the country, and would have had quite a lot to say to Vladimir Putin as well. And yet, Joe Biden doesn't seem to say a single thing to these people who are kicking us in the shins, or worse, left and right. What do you make of that?
Once again, I totally agree with you. It is a sign of weakness that China is looking for. And I think we're all correct to worry about China. To me, if you're worried about what might happen in the Western Pacific, where we have a ton of allies and we rely on a ton of trade, then you ought to be worried about the balloon because of the signal it sends. And basically, we know the Chinese spy on us, and heavens knows all of the major powers are involved in espionage. But for them to invade our airspace as they did, and for that to go really completely unanswered in terms of actual actions by the United States, is yet another sign of weakness. And frankly, Larry, it's another good reason why we need to stiffen our resolve in Ukraine, because we know China is watching what we do, and they look for whether we have the resolve to see things through in terms of our international policy.
I mean, Senator Wicker, I'm a free trader. I mean, I came into the administration as a free trader. Over 40 years ago, over 40 years ago, I was a Ronald Reagan free trader, but not as it pertains to China. All right, I stop at that water's edge, not because it's not reciprocal with these guys, and they, in my view, this is me, not you, certainly, sir. I believe they are our enemy. They are our adversary. Plus, I believe Trump would have already taken action. I think Trump. And I'd like to see there may be other Republicans, Mike Pompeo, Governor DeSantis, I don't know, Nikki Haley, maybe they'd all be the same page. I'd like to hear from them what we should be saying to China right now. I mean, I'd slap the tariffs right back on. I'd push TikTok right out of here right now. I'd say, don't you dare. Because if you do dare, this, and this is going to happen. You know, that's what Biden didn't do a year ago. Biden, you know, kind of whined about terrible economic sanctions, and nothing happened because he didn't do anything. And when he did stuff, it was too late. You follow my logic? I want to see some people kick them in the shins back, or worse.
I do understand exactly what you're saying, but I do also worry about this, Larry. The sanctions, as you pointed out, against Putin really haven't worked. There are ways around that. And I'll tell you, Phil Graham and I wrote an op-ed in the Wall Street Journal last year in which we started out by saying sanctions against China, an even bigger, more powerful economy, are going to be less effective than they were against Putin. Absolutely, we ought to be sending the signal that we're not going to tolerate what they've done, sending, for example, a balloon into our own sovereign airspace. But beyond that, sanctions are not going to prevent China from doing something totally disruptive and totally stupid with regard to Taiwan. The solution there is for us to make sure that our friends in Taiwan have the ability to defend themselves, and for our allies in the Pacific to be so strong that, just like in the Reagan days, nobody tried anything. That's, to me, more important than any economic sanctions we could bring against China. And, you know, they can make a choice, and I guess they made a choice 5-10 years ago against really being part of the international trading system and having both their citizens and the rest of the world benefit from, you know, what you called Ronald Reagan's attempt at free trade. They made a decision. No, they want to grab territory from their neighbors, and they want to exercise dominion over the entire Western Pacific, and that ought to worry us. And if that worries us, winning in Ukraine ought to be the signal that we want to send. Winning in Ukraine quickly and with all the weapons we can provide them safely.
Well, I don't know if that's possible, but you have more expertise about that and more intelligence than I do. Anyway, it's another segment. I would suggest in a pinch, going back to Reagan's peace through strength, you know, Senator Wicker, we could always limit government, lower tax rates, go back to deregulation and sound money, grow the economy at 5 or 6%, which would throw off so many new resources that not only could we help Ukraine, we could help Taiwan, which may be more important.
Those tax
sir.
cuts.
Just saying.
Those tax cuts of 2017 brought billions of dollars back to the United States.
Yes, sir.
And created hundreds of thousands of new jobs.
Yes,
right,
sir. All right, producers are screaming at me, but Senator Roger Wicker, thank you ever so much for coming back on the show.
Be nice to Larry.